as I was explaining about the hook, that's a 12. This is a 14 with a turn down eye. So I think we'll use a 14, as I said, for the demonstrative purposes, and not only that, we can use it later, which is important. You know, remember, fly tying's fun, but the object is for the fly to work. And unless it works, it's not worth a damn. So we're going to put this fly into the vise, and we will begin. So we're going to take a bobbin, and of course we wrap. In a dry fly, I don't spend a lot of time wrapping the whole shaft. It depends on the fly. In a Royal Wulff, and the sequence is to tie the wing first. So whenever you tie the kip tail or the calf tail, you grab a clump, and you know, it's really personal. That's what's beautiful. It's like artwork. So I'm going to grab it down here, and you know, it may be too much. And the key with all of fly tying is to be able to manipulate it. So I get rid of it by holding it. Here I'm getting rid of short hair, see? Now when I look at it, look, if you look closely at it, there are some hairs. Now you can use a stacker, but actually when it comes to tying faster in a fly, I really, frankly, don't use a stacker that much. But you can, because I'm just looking at the hackles, and now they're all pretty even, not perfect. If I wanted to make them even more perfect, I would now stick always the tips into a stacker, put it in the stacker, push them down. And then, of course, it's very important to have an iPad magnetic field on you. You tap it to get those hackles to go down. And then when you're taking it out, you should hold it sideways, and you should grip it in the position. So I know I'm going to be putting the hackles like this. So I'm ready to go now. So I have the stack done. And what that does is make the tips a little more even. And now I lay it against the hook. And now again, the height of the wing becomes experience. You can sort of go like this to say, gee, how high is the wing going to be? The distance that you tie it from the eye is very important. If you tie it at that distance, too close. So when you're a beginner, if anything, tie the wing further back. Give yourself plenty of eye space. Lay it down on the hook. The first turn, always between your fingers, vertical, boom, break the thread. That really... shouldn't happen. Well, when that happens, now you got a problem on a windy day, because I have no place to put the thing. So now it's going to take a lot of dexterity. And talking about sucking, now I got a rough edge, you see? You got a rough edge, it becomes a little harder to get it in the hole, but I think I got it there. I sucked it out again, and I have to start over. So we'll start over. I'm not familiar with your vise, so we'll start over, but it's pretty good dexterity to be able to hold it like that.
Good job.
And not screw up. What the heck is going on with your vise here, Sean? I really don't know why things are wobbling in this vise, but it shouldn't do that. Okay. It shouldn't break like that either. It may have been my bobbin. This definitely should not be doing this. Do you know why it does this? We need a screwdriver to do this. Okay. So we go back to hopefully where we were. I pull it down, and I'll do around 4 or 5 in a row in the same place. And I go back. So I really, and you can see I probably did around 10 turns already, because that makes it secure. All behind. Now I lift it up. And now I start and I build gradually towards it. So these are pearls. This is stuff I do naturally. I start and I build it up, and then when I get right in front, I go right and I really sock it in there to try at an angle. You notice I'm angling it to try to put it up. Now that stands it up. Now when I go behind it, I will cut the excess. In a Royal Wulff, I'm going to cut it pretty abruptly. And I always cut it at an angle like that. Okay, but I cut it abruptly. The nice part about outdoor tying is that it doesn't matter. It's all natural products. I'm behind, I turn my body to look at the hackle from behind so I can sort of separate the two. So now I make it as even as I possibly can. I separate, and now I'm going to go figure of 8. I'm going to do 2 turns. 1, 2. Now I'm going to pull this wing back. 1, 2. So that's a figure of 8. Now you can see we have the V. Now if you notice, it's still leaning forward. It's a problem because it's hard to really get it back. So I'll try to do it a little bit more, but I'm always making it gradual. I don't want an abrupt big bunch of stuff right in front because we're going to have to wrap the hackle. I just do a couple more there, and then sometimes what I'll do, if I'm patient, have a glass of wine, I'll do that for a minute. And that will just let it stand back behind us. Okay, now that helps stand it up. Okay, so I held it in place, and now we go to the back of the hook. And you don't really have to cover up all those materials. I just sort of make a little bit gradual like that. Now the tail of a Royal Wulff is very optional. I always use, for some reason, I use the hackle. Some people use deer hair classically, but I like hackle. Whenever you're choosing the tail of any fly, you always go to the periphery, the sides of the neck, because those are the stiffest hackles and ones that you usually will not use for other things. So I take the neck, I look at it, and I'm just going to pull off some. I hold the quill in my hand, okay, and I pull off the feathers like that. So here I have my feathers. Again, I have to grab them, and I hold it, and now I tie it right in at the tail. I always hold my fingers on it. One or two I do, and then I look at it. Because if I say the tail's a little long, I don't really like to splay it too much. So what I do is I very loosely loose, and that will bring the feathers together. See how it make it? Now if I pull hard, see how the feathers flare. So loosely, I like it looser. And now if you notice, it's important where the takeoff of the tail is. All right, because it's far enough just as where it goes over the bend. And now we're going to tie, I'm going to pick the quill, the plume from the peacock. I don't ever like, again, the very end of it I don't use, I get rid of it. I tie it on the side of the hook. I'm a little less fussy about my fingers here because it doesn't matter, so I don't have to pinch it as much. And I do 1, 2, 3, and then I cut the little excess, which is hard for you to see, it's on this side. And now I ran my bobbin up, and now I'm going to go. Sorry, but the thing's spinning. The hook tip is in the way, so you just sort of got to work around the tip. That's what people don't like to do, right? I'm almost got to get the wing out of the way. You don't need much, and you can just go. Uh-oh, the wind just blew things off the table. That's not good. Just my scissor. Okay, so we tied that. Now, what I like to do to save time is I just move the thread forward and I left my peacock, because a Royal Wulff is peacock, red peacock. When it comes to the floss section of the fly, I don't like, all floss can be pretty thick. So I'm going to get to a better section of the floss. I don't want it too thin or thick. You need very little. And what I do is I lick it, because the licking it makes it even thinner. A lot of licking in fly tying. Okay, and I put this down. 2 or 3 ties. You don't want to put a lot of bulk. I have to use only 1 or 2 turns. That's it. You want very little red. Even 1 turn would have been enough. I tie it off. And again, this is not a beginner. It's assuming you know all those aspects of it. And then I clip it. And now I have my peacock, which I do. And again, you don't want to bulk. We have to leave a little room for the hackle. So there is a little room. I shut that off. I have 1 or 2 turns, so now I'm ready. So the body's in place. Now if it was a regular Wulff, save your time, don't use the red, and frankly it doesn't mean a darn bit of difference. Picking your hackles, okay? So now I'm sort of, with a lot of years, I don't care if I'm off a little bit. I don't want my hackles, that height of this wing for this 14 is fine, but let's say you didn't like it. It is permissible to trim a little bit. So a lot of guys like Pete Cardinal, he hates my Wulffs. He likes a very short Wulff, very small. But for our fishing back east, the bigger the wing, not only that, if you're blind, it's a lot easier to see the fly. So I'm going to look at the hackle, and I'm going to sort of estimate, is this the right hackle? So when I pull a hackle off, I sort of have an idea. I don't like to waste hackles, and we will use this for the next fly. But to say this is the right amount, you can always test the hackle and pull it around to see how high it's going to stand. Now they do have measuring devices, a little ruler that tells you what's the proper size. When you prepare a hackle, I'm going to use 2 almost on all dry flies. the fur at the edge is no good. So we immediately get rid of that. Sometimes I'll just cut it. And then I'll even go a little further into the hackle, because that's the stiffer part of the hackle. So that's right. Don't forget, it will change size. It's going to be a little longer at the base. They get a little smaller as you go along. There's a convex and concave, or dull. That's the dull side. That's the shiny side. As a righty, I will always have the shiny side or convex side facing me. I tie it in just behind the eye. This is a classic Catskill tie for a quill Gordon or any other fly. So I do 3 behind. I look to put a few in the front to secure it, and then I leave my bobbin there and I cut it again. Notice how much room I have in the eye. I think that when you, especially first, you don't want to screw up the fly. I can put this up. Now we have room for our hackles. And you can tie, you know, some of the great ties, one of the best hackle pliers is your fingers, especially for a nice long hackle. So I always go from back to front. And if the wing gets in the way, just sort of go behind it. I hold the wing with one hand, and don't have to kill it, because you have another neck, another hackle, I mean. So here's one, and leave it long, and then I'll do 2 turns to tie that off. I will clip it right away. I think it's easy. Uncle Gary likes to pull it. It will tear, but it's not as neat as clipping it, because when you pull it and rip it, it leaves a little hair in the front. So again, of course, we have it hackle pliers. What this hackle plier does, just so you know, and this is the best one, it has a spin, a swivel, so that the hackle doesn't twist. So it sort of gives you an insurance policy. But you know, I don't mind, like I said, a long one. I actually find I like to use my fingers. I think your fingers, see now that last one just started to push the wing forward. I don't want that to happen, so I push it back, because that's always the problem with the Royal Wulff. The wing's gonna lay forward, just for your education. And now that twisted, so I can untwist the hackle. I see it wasn't straight, and I just go it. Sometimes a good maneuver to get it between is you go like this. You sort of shake it, and it gets it between the other hackles that you laid, and then you just go like that. 1, 2, 3. We clip it, and I don't waste much time. And now we get our half hitch tool, because again, with a dry fly, the less weight on it, the better. You know where my half hitch tool is?
Yeah, right there.
It's very bad when you don't have the tools readily available. And now, again, I do a quick hitch. Once you do the first one, now you can rest. You can have a drink. You're looking at the fly. You're very proud of it, because that is a gorgeous Royal Wulff. You know? A glass of wine would be better. This outdoor tying is delightful. I mean, really, could anything be better than this? I mean, really, it doesn't get better than this in a tying atmosphere. Okay, the only thing better is when you and I sneak down to Armstrong in a little while and use one of these flies. Okay, so I did 3 or 4 knots. I don't like the lacquer dry flies, because you assholes use the fly up immediately, so there's no point to putting lacquer. Not to mention it'll clog the eye and you're a little annoyed. So, no, my critique of my own fly. For a 14, I think that's perfect. The wing could be shorter. That wing would apply to almost a 12. That hackle is perfect for a 14. So the wing is probably too big for this fly. Now, you notice, if you look closely, I don't know if your mackerel, you know, I have a few whites out there. You know, just clip it if you're a perfectionist. It's nice to have a bobbin that turns, a vise that turns. But you look at it from all sides. And like I said, if you're not happy, you can always just shorten. I mean, the fish are not going to see the top of the wing, right? So no harm in just shortening it a little bit, and that's that. Hence, we have the Royal Wulff.